Hey, don't you just love technology? Hey, everyone, welcome back. It's Monday. My Monday's been kicking my butt. I literally am having deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra once said. Been uploading a lot of video and had a couple of technical issues, but we're rocking and rolling now. I see the record button is working. We were 5 minutes in and I realized that it was not, but hey, second verse, same as the first. Trevor Shruka here from Smashing Pixels and Level Up Academy. We've been talking a lot about marketing and how to stay top of mind with your customers, because when this thing ends, whether you're in the HVAC industry, whether you're in landscaping, whether you're in roofing, whether you're a dentist, it doesn't matter. People are going to be calling companies to get the things done they're used to getting done. You want to make sure that you're that one that is being called. Now, I know it's hard with everybody at home right now. Our schedules are messed up. It's hard to get back into the rhythm pattern. And that's why I brought on our guest today to help talk us through some of these points where we can chat it through and talk about how you can stay top of mind, how you can create great habits right now. He kind of was in his own type of social isolation a few years ago and came out of it. He'll tell you this story, but please welcome Rory Miller to the show. Rory, why don't you introduce everyone? And I'm confirming again, the record button is working.
Awesome, Trevor. Thanks. It's great to be here. And yeah, happy to do this. Technical glitches happen, so it's just part of rolling with the punches. So my story in a nutshell is really that I've lived a few different lives over the last 15 or so years. I had a pretty typical upbringing up until high school, and then when I went to college, a couple years in, due to financial reasons, I had to shift out of that. And the reason that really impacted me at the time was because up until then, I had just been walking down the path that my parents had put before me. You go to school, you get good grades, you graduate, you go to college, and so on and so forth. Like the same path that so many of us find ourselves on. And for me, that was really shocking because now it had ended and I was kind of presented with this situation where the next step was up to me. And I didn't really have a framework for deciding, how do I handle these kind of turbulent times? So I did some of what I advise people to do now and really dug into my values and my skills and all those things. And the decision I made was to go become a personal trainer, walk down that path for a few years. And it ended really poorly for me. Honestly, I, at some point found myself living out of a hotel that my company was paying for. I didn't have any friends outside of work. I was 35 pounds overweight, using alcohol to go to sleep, caffeine to get through the workday. I mean, insert bad habit here. I had it. And that just, in a moment of clarity, I kind of realized I didn't 100% know where I wanted my life to go, but I knew that this wasn't it. So I decided to quit, moved back home, got a little bit of balance in my life. And the company that I joined at that time, led me down another path because they went through this exercise with me at a leadership academy where we decided to write our own mission statements for our lives. And, my 25 years, this was the first time that I was really sitting down and putting thought into how I wanted to show up in the world and what I wanted my existence to be about. And, kind of like you're saying, like, how do I want to be top of mind for the people that are important to me? And I discovered that. And in the same exercise, I also was, sort of, I guess, became re-aware of some dreams that I'd had for most of my life that I had, just kind of squashed down like so many of us do. And I remember I always wanted to be in the military. So again, I left that a couple of years later, went and joined the military, became special forces in the Army. And just a few years into that, I accomplished my goal. I graduated, I become Green Beret. And then a year later, find out I have a heart condition and I'm forced out of I say forced out. My option was either to have heart surgery or to get out of the military. So I decided to get out. And now I've really stepped into coaching and helping other people find their purpose and just be the person that they want to be.
Well, dog gang, I don't know if that's the proper way of saying it. You weren't a young buck when you went into the military and basic training.
No, I was not. Yeah, I was 26. My class was a little bit unique in that it was older than most. I think our average age was 23 or 24. But yeah, your typical basic training class is going to be 18 to 20 on average.
So it sounds like you experienced in your life kind of what a lot of us are having to go through right now, which is, you said there was a little bit of social isolation. You were drinking a little bit too much at night and using caffeine to wake you up in the morning, and eating too much. You were overweight. Hey, that's what everyone's posting right now. Who isn't Tuesday drinking, right? Who isn't Monday drinking these days? And then we're using coffee to jack ourselves up. We're eating potato chips at night. So we're all kind of in that fog right now. And it really comes down to, and I should explain that a lot of the people that we talk and mentor to, they're generally have a toe in marketing or understand marketing. They're business owners, entrepreneurs, and all that. So right now, a lot of them have been sent home unwillingly to say, "Hey, you can't work, and you've got to wait this thing out." Talk to me about some of the things that may be going through their head, and some of the things that they can start to think about, just so that they, they say the idle hands are the devil's workplace. So things that they can do to keep top of mind and keep themselves occupied, not just, and I'm guilty of it as well too, not just watching Netflix too long.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the reasons I'm really convinced that this is a blessing, if you'll allow it to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bad things that are coming of it, but what this is showing to people is that so many of the systems that we've relied on for so long, and whatever way that may be, could potentially fail or not be there forever. And I think that's a lot of the discomfort that people are facing is, if you own a roofing company, there's sort of these established systems for finding new leads, for interacting with those leads, for closing business. And it's just a step 1 through 5. And most roofing business owners are just checking those blocks every day. And suddenly now steps 3 through 5 are no longer there. And people are kind of realizing that they're having to think on their feet, and they're used to just relying on this system that somebody else created. And I think it's a blessing, because now you're in a position as a business owner where we're kind of in uncharted territory, that you can create a new way of interacting and developing business if you so choose. I think one of the easiest things to remember with this is that you're never going to have more time again in your life than you have right now. I mean, the odds of us having another pandemic like this, like you said, are almost infinitesimal. And you can either spend that doing things to build your business that I'll talk about here in a second, or you can spend that watching Netflix. And so there are going to be two types of people that come out on the end of this. There are going to be people who are actually worse off financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, and there are going to be people who are better off because they took the gift of free time and they used it. And one of the simplest things that you could do is just use this as a time to sort of reinvent your business, right? So one, everybody that you want to do business with is also sitting at home. And you now, as a business owner, have never had a more layup of an option for communicating with people who you might have lost touch with. It's just a simple, hey, this is John from John's Landscaping. I hope you and your family are okay. We just wanted to check in and see if there's any way we could support you at this time. You made communication with a lead off your list. 2, you reached out and demonstrated an act of goodwill to somebody who's potentially your customer in the future. And again, like you mentioned, one of the biggest things, you're top of mind now, because I guarantee you there's no other landscaping or roofing companies that are reaching out, just making those points of contact. So, and hey, for what it's worth, Trevor, you could do that while you're watching Netflix. Honestly, I mean, you could be sitting there with your phone, watching Netflix and texting customers all at the same time. So,
well, here's a pro tip. I'm going to share this. Rory's not even heard this. I've got a lot of kids. Rory has kids as well. My kids are, idle at home, and I don't want them playing video games all day long. So I said, right, why don't you come in, set up across from my desk, and just turn on one of the laptops here, and just go down my Facebook page and tell me what names pop up. And when it would pop up somebody that I have a relationship with, or I'm saying a relationship within the last couple of years, had conversations with, not just someone that put something on Facebook that I don't know. I'm like, oh, stop, click their name, just send this. Hey, whatever their business is, hey, Rory, I hope everything's going well in this isolation for you. Just thinking of what you wanted to reach out. So as I'm continuing to do my work, I now had my daughter, who's 12, going to be 13, just type out every message that I want. And I went through probably about 100 of them the other day. I would have not done that on my own, because right, my hands are busy doing other things, but I could bring her in. It cost me $10, and I think a treat drink at the end of the day. But it got her working. It got her out from playing games or out in front of the television. It allowed me to reach out to my clients, and it allowed me to continue working. So reaching out with, I found just subtle messages, and there were 3-line messages. Some people actually sent me back paragraphs of information as if they were waiting for something. So that's a great tip to say to people: start reaching out to your customers.
Yeah, I think people are thirsty for that kind of interaction, right? I mean, especially anybody who's even a little bit extroverted is stuck in their house, possibly stuck with their kids, and they're just dying for that kind of interaction. And at the same time, this is just good marketing in general. You always want to be sensitive to the conversation that people are having. I mean, there's nothing worse right now than reaching out to somebody who's fearful or anxious about coronavirus and saying, "Hey, need your lawn mowed? We can offer you a 10% discount." Like, just completely tone deaf to what's going on in the world, but it's a completely different thing to say, "Hey, we're totally aware of what's going on. We really hope that you and your family are not impacted. If you are, here's a special program or package we've created for anybody who's lost their jobs but still wants to be able to take care of this problem we solve." Like, it takes a little work on your part, but like you said, especially for somebody who sent workers home, maybe you pay them half what you usually pay them and you let them work from home and they manage your social media or they do these messages. It really at this point is, the sky's the limit with what's possible, but it does require a little work on your part to get creative.
Well, and all of those little catchphrases that we love to use are now being able to be put into place. Like, the old, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Absolutely.
And this is that perfect time. And when it comes down to, and here's how I'm thinking of it, and I think that you and I are on the same wavelength, because when you started to say this is a great time, I'm like, yes, that's what I've been saying as well. Like, this is an exciting time. And again, when it comes down to, I can make the choice of two. One of them reached out to me while we were 3 months in the dark, not not able to know what was going on, just to check on me. I have to think that that's going to give you a leg up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, because I have this stat on the top of my head for real estate. I think it's like 75% of people go with the first agent or lender that they interact with. Period.
Yeah, amazing.
They don't even do research on who's better. They just the convenience. And so there's a similar thing happening here. Even if it was, "Hey, we'd love to come mow your lawn. We're going to do it 50% off, as long as you're okay with us, adding the cost back in 6 months from now," or something like that, right? Just for me to get, if you can service a customer right now and keep them active in your list, they will be your customer for the next 12 months at least.
Nice. It gives a new meaning to the word loss leader. Get them in the door,
right,
to sign that invoice and start working.
Yeah, and just in case there's anybody out there who's having that conversation of like, well, but I'm going to lose money if I do that. It's like, well, you're sitting at home. You're already losing money. It's a conversation about, would you rather make something than nothing and potentially set yourself up to really come out of this and be busier than you've ever been?
Absolutely. So, okay. So first thing is start reaching out to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you said, being top of mind is just all about that communication. So one of the other things I would focus on, and this is, I advise people to do this regardless of whether it's for business or personal reasons, but you need to be super clear about what it is you really value. And the reason I say that's important is because, like I said about marketing, right now, anybody who's just coming out with your same old sales messages, and I've heard these commercials, like, completely tone deaf to what's going on. It's just all about them, all about the services, all about the discounts. And everybody's mindset and mentality right now is just completely inundated with coronavirus related stuff, that if you're not at least paying a little bit of attention to that in your messaging, people are just going to ignore you. I mean, you're just not going to be heard at all. So now is the time to actually be a little bit more emotional in your messaging and really let shine through the things that are important to you. Hey, do your customers love family? Well, put that in your messaging. How much do you love family? How does your love of family impact how you do business? Do you value honesty, integrity? I mean, now is the time to really, I guess, promote not just your company, but your status as a part of the community.
Well, it really is bringing your customer closer to you, I guess, is what you're saying, where we tend to have business relationships with our clients, not personal relationships. If we're using social media, I said this before, we're now learning what the social part of social media is. We factored on the media part of social media. Now it's the social part that we're having to pay attention to. So that's a great tip to be a little bit more social, bring that customer in. I mean, we've worked off of the old acronym KLT, know, like, trust. They got to know you first, they like you second, they trust you third. Once they trust you, I mean, you might as well just be living in their wallet, because they're going to just keep spending money with you and all that kind of stuff. So again, we push that. And another good point, now is the time to let people, not push your information, but let them get to know you a little bit more, because that's just going to build trust in the long run.
Yeah, and again, one of the reasons it's such a big gift is because now we have the time. I can empathize 6 months ago if you're like, yeah, I would love to kind of reinvent my brand marketing or reinvent the way that I reach out to people, but I just don't have time. I get it. That's a real challenge for every business owner, but now you do. So it's just, like you said, what are you going to do to capitalize on it? Because everybody's got this gift that we've been given.
Yeah, I think I saw a meme the other day that said, if you still haven't started that hobby you wanted to start and done this because you used to say that you had no more time, it wasn't time that was the issue. You were just lazy,
Yeah,
or something
absolutely.
like that. It was a lot funnier than that. But yeah, you know what? And I mean, the word procrastinate, I think I invented it. Like, I'm a master of saying, if I just had time to do this, I'll put it off. And my wife will back me up on that claim. But so I picked up a drone probably a month or so ago, and I said, you know what, I'd like to get my drone license, but it's kind of busy. I don't really want to be, I'll put that on the back burner. So that was the first thing that I thought I should start doing this. And then the second one was, I said, if I only had time, I wish I could start a podcast and start interviewing people. And that one's been going in my head for a year and a half. And I think I had 3 in a year and a half. And I'm like, you know what? Now is the time. So I said to myself, I can't be shaming people for not doing this and not do something myself. So,
Absolutely.
so I went out and I got my drone license last week. And let me tell you this, Rory, that it was one tough license to pass. I mean,
Really?
all this. I mean, you were in the Army and you were in Green Berets. This is the easy stuff for you, but I mean, I had to know about security, about where I could fly this thing. If I'm
Sure.
around an airport, where can I land? If the tower goes out, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, shoot, a guy like me, I don't know that kind of stuff. So I had to study, and it's been a while since I couldn't just go to a webinar and learn. I go watch a Webby and go and do it.
Yeah.
So that was a bucket list check, and then the second one was to actually kick myself in the butt, and this podcast that I've been telling people about for a year and a half, start doing it. And you know what? Through a mutual friend of ours, John Morgan, I said, dude, I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to hold you responsible because you've been pushing me. I'm going to make you one of my guests. And I think it was about the 4th or the 5th one. And then I wouldn't say that I gave him the inspiration, because I think he was interviewed by Jason Elkins on the same day. But he then pushed out and said, listen, if you guys are looking to start podcasts, now is the time. There's 100 great guests that you can have. Start doing it. And I'm like, good. And that was the second thing that I started, only because I don't want to say I was starting to get rock fever, but my hands were almost starting to go like this. And that I was keeping myself busy for about 65-70% of the day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what am I doing for that other 30%? So now I'm filling it up with 2 interviews a day. Was there anything that you were trying to start during these last few months that you're like, you know what, I'm doing this now? And then B, what kind of encouragement can you give to others who've been putting off starting that new hobby?
Yeah. So the first thing, so I wouldn't say I started working out, but I definitely doubled down on my commitment and consistency with exercise. So I guess, and this sort of, I guess, dovetails into another piece of advice I would have for people personally, is just be flexible about what your life looks like right now. It's not going to look like it looked 30 days ago. So you just need to be flexible. And so I've been implementing that by finding new times or different pockets of time where I could exercise, where I might typically have either put it off or just worked or something like that. And then the other thing is I've actually started looking into day trading and learning how to day trade and practicing with that and doing some investing as well. That's been on my radar for a long time and something I've wanted to learn. So yeah, those are 2 things that I've used. I've been actually getting up earlier. Just found that my days tend to be a little more chaotic because there's so much going on in the house with my kids being home. So it's, I need that quiet time in the morning to be able to either just focus and get some stuff done, or, just have time where I'm not, somebody's not pulling on my pant leg saying, hey, daddy, I need something. In terms of advice to everybody else, what I would challenge people, and this is a really powerful thought exercise, regardless of what the situation is, but I would ask you, when 50 years from now, when you look back on this few month period that we have, what will you have expected of yourself? And I've always found, sort of thinking into the future, or even possibly all the way to my death, has been super powerful in helping me understand and get perspective on how I want to show up in the world. And so I get it that we've never been in a time in the history of humankind where distraction has been so easy. You could literally be awake all day long, 24 hours, and never produce or think one original thought. I mean, you could just be from cell phone to YouTube to Netflix all the time, right? But 50 years from now, when you're talking to your kids or grandkids about this pandemic that, you know, really affected the world and changed our economy and all this stuff for so many years, how will you want to be able to talk about yourself? Will you want to be that person of like, yeah, I vegged out and I was 20 pounds heavier and I binged on Tiger King? Or
I was just going to say, this is going to be the time when people were like, I met the Tiger King.
Yeah, seriously. Or, you know, do you want this to be the time where you, well, firstly, I mean, you know, obviously your hobbies, you learned a language, or you started that hobby, the woodworking, or you learned how to paint, or you just were more present with your spouse, for crying out loud. But more so, do you want to be somebody in your community or your business or your network, wherever it is, you want to be somebody that was seen as a leader, as a rock, as somebody who's stable, who's persevering? Or do you want to be seen as somebody who just kind of crippled under the pressure of the situation and wasn't somebody that could be relied on? And I think answering those questions should tell you exactly what you need to be doing. And if that's not motivation enough, I don't really know, you know, how to push you further over the edge from there.
No, you know what? Those are sage words. And what about now? I've been fortunate, or we've been fortunate here to have enough work to carry us all through.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been a lot of companies that have had to lay off employees or knock down their hours. What advice can we say to them, or can you say to them about how they can continue to connect with their employees who are at home? Obviously, not every employee is happy. Some of them we're relying on those paychecks to pay their bills. But again, like you said, uncertain circumstances have come up. So most realize what's going on. How can an employee connect with an employer without overstepping?
Yeah, I think so. You're asking how can an employee connect with their company?
Sorry, I said it backwards.
Okay,
I started it one way and I closed it off.
Just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah. How can an employer stay connected with his employees during this time of need? Because I think you and I both realize that if somebody's laid off, maybe in 3 or 4 months, they start to think, man, is this the place that I really wanted to work at? Could I find a better job? Or as we're talking about right now, learn that new hobby, all the webinars that people are taking, maybe they're going to have another calling. So what's a way that an employer can maybe protect their investment that they've had in someone and to continue to stay connected with them?
Yeah. So I have two things that I'll kind of say about this. I mean, one, harkening back to what I mentioned earlier, you got to get creative. So if you're locked into this mindset that, you know, your relationship with that employee is just their hours and then your pay, you're really looking at this the wrong way. You might have to let somebody go. But for example, my sister-in-law was let go. The company let go of everybody all at once and then filed unemployment for them so that they would have some income. And they sort of got that ball rolling with the state as this, like, hey, we want to do what we can for you to make sure that things are okay. But there's a million other ways that you can support them, right? Let's say you can't pay somebody their part-time or full-time income. Could you potentially pay for them to have food delivered a couple nights a week? Or could you potentially offer some sort of delivery service for their groceries? Or, I mean, just how could you support them financially in this time where it's less than what you would have to pay them full time, but still enough to keep your company in there as well? Like, look what they're doing for me, even though they weren't able to keep me employed. You just need to get creative. Everybody has needs right now, and everybody's needs are either different or more pressing than they usually are. And there are ways for you to step in as a company and fill that, because, you know, every company might be having a hard time, but you could probably find $50 a month per employee, or $100 or something that you could contribute just to let them know that we're thinking about you. We really hope we can bring you back on. And we just want you to know that we're trying to support you in any way we can and still keep ourselves going.
So again, it's getting to that personal level with your employers and
Right.
employees the same way you would with your customers.
Absolutely.
And again, I've seen this a lot where people, they might not like the job that they have, but they've created a family in that company that they don't
Right.
want to leave. And I think that these things that you were suggesting, that's what creates that family unit where, again, I'll put up with this because in the time of need, they came through for me.
Yeah. And that's actually a great point. I mean, what would it cost you as a company to just do a a weekly or a bi-weekly Zoom call with your employees. That's kind of a lunch just gathering, just get everybody together, have some fun, and let everybody connect. And that's free. It costs you nothing. But I think what everybody, and this is another, I mean, personally or professionally, what people need to be doing is they need to be rethinking return on investment. Traditionally as a company, you pay them X and you expect to get Y, and that's kind of the return on investment. Well, you may still be investing money, but there are a lot of other things that you could invest right now. And the return may also come in a lot of other ways other than money.
Right.
So you need to be thinking as a business, like what, and maybe the investment time frame changes, right? You typically, hey, I pay you this week, you work this week. Well, you might be paying them in some way for 3 months, and the investment might pay off down the road. But we just need to shift our mindsets around how we think about these systems, because everything is changing.
Well, I don't want to pull out another one of those old sayings, but the old short-term gain or short-term pain, long-term gain really
Right.
fits into exactly what we're talking about right here. So now let's get down to some nitty-gritty stuff before we finish off. Marketing tips. If we can dovetail a little bit into marketing tips. I know you were saying advertising. There has been some really bad advertising. I've seen just some horrible stuff that's out there that's like, oh, dude, like too soon. I've also seen where people have prepaid for advertising, and this is going to change in the future. So the radio is having to spin that 30-second spot, which is for a family restaurant. Come on down, open from 9 a.m.
Right.
till, and the spin has to go because it's prepaid, and that kind of stuff. What are some other marketing opportunities that you've seen that you've said, you know what, brilliant, great way to connect with the customer today, whether the company is not working because of they're not deemed non-essential or essential services, or whether they are still working. Because I'm looking at it this way: there are people that are going to come out of this thing stupid rich and
Right.
with more business than they can handle. You've already seen people who have pivoted from their business of sewing winter jackets to all of a sudden they're making gowns for hospitals,
Right.
distilleries. And the interesting thing was the people were going on and saying distilleries, they pivoted to make hand wash. But I'll say this: a distillery is governed by how much they can sell alcohol for in whether it's the state or whether it's the province.
Yeah.
So you usually get about 40 cents per ounce of alcohol. Well, shoot, you could sell hand cleaner for $2 an ounce.
Right.
So they're going to see their return 6x, 7x on it. So when they're like,
Yeah.
the distilleries have stopped making it, they haven't stopped making it because they don't want to. They stopped making it because they realize that, hey, we're going to get a 600% increase in our sales. Sure, we'll do this.
Yeah.
But other than pivoting, what other marketing tactics or other initiatives have you seen that you can share with some people?
Yeah. I'd like to take this chance to just plug marketing in general, because on
Absolutely.
most of the platforms, it hasn't been this cheap to get this much reach in years, because so many businesses are having to pull back. So if you are that local business or that smaller business that maybe hasn't ever spent money on ads, I mean, just $5 a day, $10 a day, just get your brand out there. Now, when you do that, the thing you need to be doing is you really need to be entering the conversation that people are having. So think about what your ideal customer is thinking about in their mind when it comes to your business. And kind of a quick example I just came up with. So if you are a lawn care business, people usually pay you because they don't have the time to manage their own lawn. Well, now they have the time, but they may not have the equipment because they paid you for years. So could you rent them some of your equipment for 25% of the cost of you doing it yourself and let them do it? And now you've satisfied a new need that has popped up where somebody has the time but doesn't have the equipment, and you can provide that. So it's just all about getting creative in your messaging, but enter the conversation that people are having in their head. So you just want to speak to that. And then going back to being human and having value, you're really just displaying that to the world, right? Hey, we get it. We're part of the community. We understand you, and we're uniquely positioned to help you solve your needs right now. And like you said about hand sanitizer, alcohol, when you're able to do that right now in the middle of this crisis, you'll find that people's buying behavior is crazy, because the needs they do need solved, people really need them solved.
Yep.
And if you can position your brand as somebody who's able to do that, you're not going to have any problem converting people into customers.
Well, and I should have said when we were talking about pivoting, a mutual friend of ours, Jeremy Keene, was selling into the school system. They
Yep.
closed, and then he said, "Hey, why don't I pivot and sell sanitizer to the world?" And again, another bump up.
Right.
3D manufacturers, uh, uh, so are creating the headgear part for the
Yeah.
shields and all that kind of stuff. People, mom, grandmothers that can knit the back part of it. I mean, there's so many things that are happening. I do like what you're saying about get in the mind of where your customer is, because where your customer was 3 months ago when you were
Hmm.
trying to sell him a pizza, or trying to sell him coming to your restaurant, or trying to sell him on that new furnace. Now it's going into the air conditioning season. Where they were 3 months ago compared to where they are today, they're in uncharted territory, the same way that you and I are. So we really have to, as business owners, it's very easy for us to think like business owners, but we have to really start thinking like our customers, because more than ever, your customers will sniff it out if you're in tune with them or not in tune with them.
Right. Yeah. I guess in its simplest form, marketing is still just positioning your brand as a solution to needs. Where the change is happening is those needs have changed.
Yeah.
And if you're still speaking to the old needs, people aren't even going to hear you. I mean, it's just going to be in one ear out the other, because they're very aware of what they need right now. If you have a monopoly on toilet paper, you've got a big business.
Um, we talk about a lot of positioning and depositioning. A lot of people don't like to deposition competition because they think that it's talking bad about their competition, when really it's not saying anything bad about your competition. It's just basically saying, hey, we have this extra widget in our basket that the competition doesn't, so therefore ours is better. Um, Even easier today with being able to deposition your competition, especially if they're forced to lay everyone off,
Right.
and you're not. If you're in that fortunate spot where you have enough business that can carry you through, you
Hmm.
can really separate yourself from your competition and deposition just by saying things like still servicing the, you know, New York area, still
Right.
servicing this area, so people can go, oh, okay. And that is enough to deposition you from everyone else who's no longer servicing that area because they can't afford to service it,
Right.
because they've lost people. So not only just positioning, we like to talk about depositioning as well. And this is the easiest way to deposition. You're not saying anything bad about anyone. All you're doing is saying what you're doing. So
Right.
positioning, depositioning is so key right now as well. There was something else I was going to say, but I had it's lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me in a second. But what's your thoughts on depositioning the competition in this time that you can get a leg up? Because again, we're not saying anything bad about the competition, but right now, if you can manage to stay open through this whole thing. First of all, anyone that opened a business within the last 6 months, new people to your industry, they're pretty much wiped out.
Right.
They're going to disappear. So right now, we're all in an industry where no one else, no, you have no new competition, and this could last for the next 4 months. Not only no new competition, you also have smaller competition that can't afford to stay open. So again, that's pushing them back. So the opportunities to stay afloat, get in
Hmm.
front of people, that I mean, that's what keeps getting me up every day and coming to the office. Like it's like I can't wait for this thing to end, because we're going to be, coming out of here like a thoroughbred. But your thoughts on the depositioning of that, and the fact that no new competition is really starting in your space because it's just too expensive, or it just can't happen.
Yeah. So in arguably my lifetime, I think this is probably the time where you will have to do the least depositioning ever, because the whole tactic behind that is that your marketing message needs to, in the customer's mind, display why you're better than the message they just heard during the last radio commercial break. Well, that's not happening anymore, because most of those businesses, I don't know what percentage, but most of them aren't running ads anymore. So one, if you're still running ads or any kind of marketing, your voice is one of the few they're hearing. And I don't think you need as much of that. Here's why I'm better. I think you just need to demonstrate your value. So like you said, hey, still servicing such and such area, or we've maintained X percentage of our workforce so we can do this for you. I mean, you're really focusing on how your business is unique during, relevant to this crisis, and the things that you're doing to take care of your team and your customers. And I think that's all you need to do. I mean, that it's sort of on top of just being out there with your messaging. Now is the time to have some kind of marketing message in front of your target audience for sure.
Nice. And Rory, so last thoughts before we have to say goodbye. Just any last thoughts that you have or last tips that you can share to push people down in the right direction or point them in the right direction to make sure that they are becoming the legend or becoming a legend? Becoming a legend.
Becoming a legend.
Because that's what you want. That's what we want coming up with this thing. You want to become a legend. So, and any other tips that we can, or that I keep saying the we because it's, well, hey, I'm asking the question, so it's we.
Yeah,
but any other tips that you can share with people to help them become their own legend?
Yeah. So real quick, and I'll just clarify because I know sometimes that legend and legacy can have different meanings for people. And when I use that word, I always mean in the way that you define it. If that's legendary money, legendary relationships, legendary whatever, it's really about living a legendary life, however you define it. What I would challenge people to do is, one, you've got this time, and two, you've got, for the first time in most of the Western world, a threat to our survival. I mean, bigger threat than we've had probably since World War I or II, right? So what I would challenge people to do is take some of that time and think about, if by chance this situation happened to be the end for you, how will you want your life to be remembered? And is there anything in particular that you would do differently, either through actions, like you said, picking up a hobby or starting something new, or through just your general presence? Would you be different for people, the people that matter to you? Would you spend more time with them? Would you put your phone down more? Would you be more, empathetic? If this were the end, if you really were about to face coronavirus and this was going to be the end of you, how would you want your life to be remembered? And use this time to start just being that person. Chances are, when you discover how you want to show up in the world, there's going to be a gap somewhere between where you are now and where you want to be. And you now have the time, more than you'll ever have probably for the rest of your life, to cultivate whatever knowledge, skills, or ability you need to have to bridge that gap. And so my wish for everybody is that they would just spend some of this time really reflecting on who they want to be, and then take advantage of the time to bridge that gap and just start being that person.
Man, I wasn't expecting you to go that deep. So I'm gonna have to go home and think about that one. Anyways, listen, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and helping inspire people who are looking to be inspired. How can people, if they want to start following you, connect with you, contact you, can you share that with us?
Yeah. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, any of those platforms, it's the Rory Miller. And I can get you links to all that. And then there's also my website, RoryMillerBrands.com. There's an about page on there. So if you want to hear a little bit more about my story, I go much more in depth there. And there's also a form on there that they can connect to me if they want to have conversation.
Wonderful. Rory, thanks again for your time. I know that the kids were in the background there and they're probably missing their dad. But again, thanks a lot for sharing this information. We'd love to have you back again and to talk even in a deeper strategy, especially if this thing goes on longer than what we're hoping for. But again, God bless you, and hopefully everything turns out as legendary as you were hoping it does.
Yeah, you too, Trevor. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.